Yo, what is up? It is your boy Zether, back at it again with a brand new What If. Now, this is going to be part 2 to the April Fool's special, with part 1 being Butt Jiggle Gang Deku and part 2 being Yamcha Deku. So this one, we're going to be having the God, the Almighty, the Lord of the Universe, my boy Yamcha, training Izuku. Now you guys may be like, yo, Zether, chill, bro, like, we get it. Your what ifs, you like doing overpowered like Dekus, but this is just too far. And I mean, I get it. Like, this Deku is going to be way too powerful, but you know, we gotta do it. Come on now, we gotta do it. We gotta give some praise to the god Yamcha. Come on now, like we just had to. We had to. No, but in all seriousness though, this Deku is actually gonna be pretty dang powerful, and it's gonna be a pretty fun series to record. Actually, not really series, because it's most likely just going to be part 1, and that's really it. But if you guys like it enough, then I might actually turn it into a series and stop, joking about it. But let's just go ahead and jump right into this. So this story is actually all going to start off when Deku's pretty much walking home from, picking up his book from the fish pond after Bakugo had just exploded it. And this is when Deku would proceed to be walking through the sewers as a sludge villain would come in out of nowhere and be like, "Hey kid, give me your body." As Deku would say, "What? No!" As this is when the sludge villain would just jump on Deku, as Deku would just try to yank the sludge villain right off of him. He would try to do anything and everything he can to just do anything at all, but it just wouldn't work. And this is when Deku would begin to think to himself, maybe he should just let it happen, just like he did in the original canon, until our Lord and Savior, God Almighty, Yamcha, comes in with his sexy uniform. He had just came in from playing a baseball game, and our boy Yamcha was ready to save this man's life with everything. He would pull his hand back as he would say, "Wolfang Fist!" as he would rush towards the sludge villain, creating the biggest amount of waves that would change the weather instantly. There'd be clouds all over the skies, and after that, they would all be obliterated. Every cloud would just dissipate from 100 miles from as far as you can see. As Deku would just be blown out of the sludge villain, as Yamcha would jump up and grab Deku's arm as he pulls him in and says, Hey, you okay?" As Deku would just be like, "What happened?" As this is when Yamcha would say, "Kid, you got attacked by a villain. You okay?" As Deku would get up slowly, and Yamcha would then say, "Here, have some of my ki." As he would put some of his ki into Deku. And this is when Ultra Instinct Deku would awaken. As Deku, just kidding. But this is when Deku would pretty much awaken, feeling a lot better after that. As he would say, "Oh, what happened?" As Yamcha would begin to explain to Deku that what had ended up happening was that villain ended up attacking Deku. And because of that, Deku was put into a very dangerous situation. As Deku would say, "Dangerous situation? I guess." As Deku would just say, "So, why'd you save me?" As Yamcha would say, "Oh, I saved you. To be honest with you, kid, I just did it just because I had nothing else to do. As I was just passing by and I saw that you needed some help, so I decided to come in, why not?" As he would say, "What's your hero name?" As Yamcha would say, "Hero name?" As Deku would just say, "Yeah, what's your hero name?" As Yamcha would say, "Oh, yeah. Well, kid, I'm not a hero. I'm a baseball player." As Deku would look towards him and see his outfit, and he'd be like, "Oh, you're Yamcha, right? You play in the low division?" As Yamcha would just be like a little irked by that, and he would be like, "Yes, that's me." As Deku would just say, That's awesome. So, how good are you?" As Yamcha would just begin to talk about himself, since we all know how much Yamcha loves himself. As he would proceed to pretty much just talk and not be quiet. As, pretty much Yamcha would just keep talking about himself, as Deku was just kind of listening and, just letting Yamcha go on and on about himself. And this is when Deku would ask him if he could teach him how to do what he did. As Yamcha would say, "Well, not to toot my own horn, but I think I definitely could teach you a thing or two about martial arts." As Deku would say, "Really?" And Yamcha would say, "Yeah, of course. Just, where would you want to train?" As he would say, "Great, so where do I meet you?" As Yamcha would just say, "Let's meet me at Dagoma Beach. And in the morning, don't be late. As Deku would say, of course not. As Deku would run off home, and Yamcha would actually just leave the sludge villain there. The sludge villain would go back into the sewers and just escape, not even grabbing Bakugo. As Deku would go home and tell his mom about some guy he met that's actually going to train him to see if he could get strong enough to go to UA. As for the next couple of months, Yamcha would actually proceed to train Deku in his godly techniques. As by the end of that, Deku after the 10 months would actually be able to use about, use ki to a certain degree. As at this point, Yamcha had actually taught Deku how to fly in the same manner that Gohan had taught Videl. He would have also taught her how to shoot ki blasts out, and he would have also taught him how to pretty much fight and use martial arts to his full capabilities. As after all this time, Deku would have actually gotten toned out after using his ki and, training with it for so long, after realizing that Deku was actually a natural in terms of ki control. As Yamcha would have thought that, I guess you're almost as great as I was when I was your age. As Deku would say, really? As Yamcha would just begin to, talk about himself, talking about the good old days when, the rest of the gang was around. As Deku would say, who's the rest of the gang? As Yamcha would say, oh, yeah, no, you don't know them. As Yamcha would then begin to tell Zuko, here, how about I tell you about little something? I'm not really from this world. As Deku would say, what? You're not? As Yamcha would say, no, I actually come from a different universe. Well, there was a little bit of a huge explosion after villain came to attack our world. And in that collision, a portal opened which sent most of us into random dimensions. And this is where I ended up. I'm glad I ended up in a great one, but I've always wondered where the rest of the gang is. As Deku would say, wow, you weren't there to protect them, were you? As Yamcha would say, sadly not. Thinking that, this kid's totally buying it. As Deku would just proceed to be listening to Yamcha ramble on about himself. As Yamcha would just keep talking to Deku, telling him about the good old days with Goku and his quote-unquote wife Bulma that he had that was, so pretty. As, Yamcha would just be going on and on with Deku there, just kind of listening to him and not really questioning him at all. He would just kind of sit there, and this is when Yamcha would begin to pretty much just keep talking and just not really stop the rambling. As Yamcha would just keep trying to talk to Deku and telling him about more and more stuff about his youth and childhood and just his days with the Z Warriors. As Deku would think that those adventures are awesome, asking how powerful their foes like Frieza and Cell are. As Yamcha would just begin to just keep telling Deku about all of that stuff during the 10 months. And after this, Deku would definitely be in a at about, let's say, Krillin level at the World Martial Arts Tournament level. Let's say he's at about that level in terms of his strength. So that's pretty much how strong we're going to be having this version of, Deku. Seeing that it's nothing too crazy, but it's definitely a little something, a little overboard, I guess you could say. But not really too much, so I don't think it should be that bad, So anyways, with that being said, guys, this is when we're now going to go ahead and cut on over to Deku pretty much going to take the entrance exams. As Deku would thank Yamcha for all his training and everything. As Yamcha would honestly just pat the kid on the back and tell him that he's going to do great out there. As he would tell him that he got a big game and that he better be watching it after his quirk. As Deku would say he wouldn't miss it for the world. As Deku would fly off to the entrance exam, and when he would land, Bakugo would be there as he sees Deku flying, and he would say, hey, you damn nerd, how the hell did you do that? I thought you were quirkless. As Deku would say, oh, no, turns out that I ended up awakening my quirk early on. It's kinetic manipulation, which essentially allows me the power to flight, super strength, and energy blast with kinetic energy. As Bakugo would say, what? You bastard. How did you get so strong? As Deku would begin to ask him why he's so bothered about him and to focus on himself. As Bakugo would say, what the hell you say to me, Deku? As Deku would look towards him and say, you heard what I said. I'm not going to take anything from you anymore, Bakugo. As Bakugo would look towards Deku and go, ugh, he would just walk off into the arena, telling him that he won't even get in anyways. As he would walk on off into UA. As Deku would go in there, and this is when he would meet a girl, like in canon, Uraraka. And yes, he would still have the fear of girls, just like Yamcha had in the original canon. As when Uraraka tried to talk to him, he would actually just kind of get scared off by her, as she would just be like, huh? What's wrong? As Deku would just be like, yeah, what's your name? And she would say, my name is Ochako or Araka. As that conversation goes, pretty much in canon. Yeah, pretty much like in canon. As Deku would just kind of be smiling to himself, thinking that he just talked to a girl. As this is when pretty much Deku would just be chilling, as he would go inside and take the exam, which he would actually do a little bit worse than he did in canon, considering the fact that instead of studying, he would have actually ended up doing more martial arts training instead of actually hitting the books as much as he would have in canon. Since Yamcha told him that it'd be better for him to get stronger, since he has no quirk, than to, focus too much on studies. He can focus on that later. And, yeah. So this is essentially what Deku does. He would go through the exam, and when President Mike would be telling the stuff, Deku would actually still do the muttering thing, which causes Ida to get up and call Deku out. And this is when Deku would just kind of mutter under his breath, this kid is such a loser. I mean, he's really focused on everybody except for himself. And he's so weird with his little glasses, thinking that he's all cool and mighty. As Deku would be thinking that he can't wait to rip him a new one. As Deku would go outside to the robot exams, as this is when Ida would walk up to him, as Deku was pretty much trying to walk up to the front, saying, you cannot go talk to that girl. As Deku would say, what girl are you talking about? I was just trying to get to the front. As Ida would say, oh, my apologies. As he would say, wait, aren't you that kid who did that thing? As Deku would say, oh, yeah, I was the one who was muttering. As Ida would say, well, I hope you can get yourself in line if you're going to be going to UA. So, go ahead and go off, and don't bother that girl over there. As Deku would say, and who the hell are you to be telling me what I can and can't do? I wasn't even going to go talk to her. Matter of fact, I was going to just go to the front, but then you came into my way and you need to start minding your own business. As Ida would look towards him and be just like, what? How dare you talk back to me? As Deku would get up into his face and say, what are you going to do about it? As Ida would just say, and just walk off, as he thinks that it's better to just leave this kid alone than to, get caught up in his little antics. As Ida would walk off feeling self-righteous, thinking that he's in the right and that nobody else can top him. As this is when Deku would be by the front, as soon as the exam started and Deku saw that Ida was running towards one of the robots, Deku would shoot a ki blast towards it so that the explosion could hit Ida, and the piece of the robot would have actually flung towards Ida's leg, actually damaging one of them, meaning that he actually ended up getting about 7 points less than he did in canon. Actually, let's go with 20 points less than he did in canon. Because then he wouldn't get in. Let's just go with 10 points less than canon, right? 10 points less than canon. And let's just say that it takes him way longer to get those points, and that he's struggling and hurts himself and has to push himself way harder. As this is when Deku would fly around punching through these robots, going Wolf Fang Fist, as he would shoot a couple of ki blasts into the direction, and this is when the giant 0-pointer robot would come in. As Deku would see that girl who had talked to him earlier, as he would think that he needs to save her at all costs, as he would jump up into the air and say, as Deku would blast the Kamehameha straight at the robot, obliterating it in seconds. As the robot would just go by flying, as the robot would pretty much be incinerated. As Deku would fly towards Araka as he grabs her, not realizing what he had just done. As this is when Deku would hold onto something squishy, as he would start squeezing and squeezing again, thinking, this is kind of nice. As this is when Uraraka's face would blush as she would slap Deku across the face. As Deku would say, what? What did I do? As he would notice and say, I'm so sorry. As Deku would drop Uraraka onto the ground and she'd be like, help me! As this is when Deku would just fly off and be like, oh, sorry. As he would rush on over and grab Uraraka once again, the right way this time. As he would say, sorry about that. I just unlocked my power and I wasn't looking at where I was touching. As Uraraka would say that it's fine. Like, thank you for saving me. As she would awkwardly walk off and Deku would just be like, that usual little Yamcha laugh. As Deku would just be thinking, I really just ruined my chances with that girl. She was so pretty too. As, he would just walk off and then decide that maybe he should do something about his little, his shyness of girls. As Deku would decide to ask Yamcha how he dealt with that, back when he was his age. As Yamcha would have actually told him that, he was great with the ladies. He would have actually told Deku that he had no problem, and that if he ever had any troubles, he can come to Papa Yamcha. As this is essentially what Yamcha would be telling Deku, feeding him all this nonsense, as you would pretty much actually be the strongest on the planet right now, since nobody else can really rival him. And I'm saying that at this point, Yamcha is definitely way more powerful than anybody at all in the My Hero universe, since he could pretty much blast a planet and just destroy it altogether. As that's pretty much how that goes. As this is when Deku would arrive to Yamcha, asking him what happened. Why did he freeze up so bad? As Yamcha would get like a little shiver down his spine as he thinks about Olaf. Olaf? Yeah, that little pet that he has, right? You guys know what I'm talking about, right? As he would think about what his little buddy would have told him if he was in need for, some advice. As this is when Yamcha would pretty much look towards Deku and say, well, when I was your age, I didn't really have much to do, so pretty much begin to talk to other girls and just get more practice here on out. As Deku would say, so what you're saying is that I need to go talk to a bunch of girls? As Yamcha would say, that's it. That's the one. Let's go ahead and get ready and go out to talk to some women. As Deku would say, but I'm like 14. As Yamcha would say, oh, right, girls. As he would then go over to the stores, he would buy a couple of clothes for, Izuku. As Deku would actually get a haircut and get it trimmed a little shorter, more maintained and less really crazy. As Deku would approach a couple of girls, as he would be extremely shy, just like, what's your name? As after about the 50th one, Deku would finally be able to say, hey, what's your name? She would say, oh, hi, my name is Momo Yayorozu. As Deku would say, Momo, huh, that's a pretty cool name. As he would say, wait, you said Yayorozu? As she would say, yeah. As Deku would say, I've heard about you. Your father he's amazing. He discovered so many technological advancements for us. Your father's just helped us so much. As she would say, yeah, you know about him? As he would say, of course I do. I'm a little bit of a geek for that stuff. As this is when Deku and Momo would begin to go sit by a bench and begin to talk to each other, kind of losing themselves in conversation, as Momo would talk to him about some nerdy things that she's into, as Deku would respond back asking her if she's into anime. And she would say that, yeah, of course she is. As she would say that she's always been into anime. She would say, have you seen that Naruto manga? It's amazing with the ninjas and the genjutsus and all that stuff. As Deku would just say, yeah, totally. As he would ask, who's your favorite character? As Momo would look towards Deku and say, who is my favorite character? Well, if I had to say who my favorite character is, I think it would have to be, As she just begins to think about things. She's like, well, my favorite character would definitely have to be, let's go with Danzo. She would say Danzo. As Deku would say, hold up now. You're playing, right? As Momo would say, yeah, kidding. As she would say, yeah, my favorite character is Madara. As Deku would say, so you're into Papa Madara as well. As Deku would say, I see. You are very well cultured. As this is when Deku would look towards her and tell her that his favorite character is... Who's my favorite character? Let's see. I'm going to answer that right now. Who's my favorite Naruto character? Honestly, I can't think about it right now. But if I had to say, I think my favorite character would have to be Boruto, to be honest. I'm playing with y'all. It's Madara. Shisui. I gotta go with Shisui. I just think he's a badass, honestly. And yeah, this is when Deku and Momo would pretty much decide to wave each other off, as Deku would have actually ended up getting Momo's number. As Yamcha would walk up to Deku and tell him that he did great. As Deku would say, he did what great? As he would say, he just had a full conversation with the girl and got her number. Was he not paying attention? As Deku would say, I what? As Yamcha would say, yeah, you had a full conversation with that girl over there, and, how did you not know this? You were there. As Deku would say, oh my god, I did. As he would say, I did it. As Yamcha would pretty much give Deku a high five, as he would say, well, your training's going pretty well for now. But, sooner or later, I'm going to have to teach you some of the divine techniques like Ultra Instinct and, how to go Super Saiyan. As Deku would say, what? As Yamcha would say, kidding. As this is when Yamcha would pretty much look towards Deku and tell him that he's doing great for now. And this is where we're going to be ending off the April Fool's special. Which is also there's 2 April Fool's specials today. This one, as well as Butt Jiggle Gang Deku. So after you're done watching this one, I highly suggest you go watch that one. That one's pretty hilarious. That one's pretty hilarious as well. But with that being said, guys, it is your boy Zether, and I am out. Peace.